listening to the Deep Purple Podcast, a fan podcast about one of the most legendary bands of all time, Deep Purple. We take a look at the music, history, and people behind the band Deep Purple and beyond.
Welcome to the Deep Purple Podcast, the first and only podcast devoted to one of the greatest bands in rock history, Deep Purple. Today's episode is episode number 254, Glenn Hughes From Now On, Part 1. And coming to you from the suburbs of Chicago, where our chipsets are set, I'm your host, Nathan Beaudry.
And coming to you from the suburbs of Providence, I'm your co-host, John, the pilot, Matola.
Ooh, have you taken up flying?
No, it's my fact for the week. Alaska.
Hey, did you do one last week or did you forget?
No, I didn't forget. I put in a clause there is that I would try and do it every week, except if I had something good. And I think last week I had something good. I had something else today, but I mean, I'm just like, I don't want to be like, yeah, I'm going to do one and then 2 weeks in a row I don't do it. Everybody's like, all right, that friggin' liar.
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking about. I was like, wait a second, I forgot about that. He didn't do anything about states. So what's the pilot about for Alaska?
Alaska has the highest number of pilots per capita in the U.S.
Oh, that's right, because there's a lot of parts of Alaska where you can't get from one part to the other. You have to fly.
Yes.
And have you ever watched Northern Exposure?
No.
Great show, but yeah, one of the characters is a pilot, and she flies them around on this little, like, one of those little what do you call them? Those little tiny planes.
Yeah, a little. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, I don't care for that. I've never been in a plane. Have you ever been in like one of those little, what do you call?
Oh God, no! Like a fucking puddle jumper? No, thanks.
Yeah, yeah, that's a puddle hopper or puddle. Yeah, no.
No. I want to be on a plane, boat, or any other structure that's so huge that I don't understand what's happening while I'm traveling.
You have no visible evidence that you're actually not in just like a building or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like even when there's turbulence in a plane, huge plane, I'm just like, ah! Which is, an understandable reaction for anybody that, doesn't like flying would have. I don't hate flying, but I do get I don't get motion sick in planes, but on like a boat. Like, have you ever been on a boat, like not a cruise ship? I mean like a boat where it's going like doing this shit. Like I get very motion sick.
Yeah, it doesn't really get me motion sick, but I do not like flying, and I definitely like any little noise or whatever. Like I could be in a bus that was like falling off of a bridge, and I'd be like, whatever. But I'm in a plane, and like there's just this one little like boom, and I'm like, what was that? What was that? Did you hear that? Like nobody else on the plane, and I look around, nobody else, like everyone else is snoring or whatever. Like nobody has any care in the world, and I can't. Oh man, I get really nervous.
I thought it was because you were traumatized because you like spill hot liquid all over people whenever you go flying.
I think that's more that woman now. She can't get in a
maybe she's traumatized.
She buys the seat next to her now and just keeps it empty.
They're like, we like that lady. She buys 2 seats.
Oh boy, folks. Well, thank you for joining us once again this week. The show about Deep Purple, where 2 old friends get together and chat about our history with Deep Purple or lack of history with Deep Purple, discover new things. If you're new to the show, hey, use that fast forward button. Get through the banter if you don't like it. Just get right to the John's rolling his eyes.
Why did you get more feedback that somebody doesn't like the banter?
I didn't. It's the only feedback I ever get though, but I haven't gotten any in a while. But it's like, they're not. I'm 37 seconds into the show and they didn't talk about Deep Purple yet. And I think it's mostly people have just never heard a podcast before, because that's kind of what podcasts do. But if you're watching on YouTube, you're just like, why didn't they just like have all these like Deep Purple? Do you want to know the greatest moments in Deep Purple history? Check us out, like and subscribe. They're used to all that like flash. And you're gonna be
we're not
YouTubers. We just happen to be on YouTube. So
yeah, we're like the actual Deep Purple. We're not very flashy.
Yeah, they're not on YouTube either.
Yeah, but that's fine. I mean, I get it. There are some times where I'll think about that. Like we'll be Like if I listen back to an episode, or if I'm just like, oh, I remember this is a particularly fun one, let me listen to a little bit. There'll be like times where like 20, 25 minutes in, and or I'll like look, I'll just be like, I wonder how far in we are, because we haven't even like talked about the topic yet. And I'm like, oh boy, I bet some people are going to be pissed now. It's been like half an hour.
Well, they say this show is about Deep Purple, but I am suspicious.
We're talking about, the weather and car problems and your kids and whatever else.
That's right. Dogs. But
Dogs.
hey, if you want to support our show, you can do so a number of ways. One is by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Haven't had one in a while. Kind of stalled out at 100 there. So if you want to be number 101, please write us a review. Helps new people discover the show. So I'm told. You can buy some merch at our Etsy store, which I continually threaten to shut down, but still haven't done yet. You can also become a patron on Patreon or on PayPal for as little as $1 a month. Help support the show. Helps us get items for the show. And hey, upstairs, whirring away, is our brand new studio PC, all assembled, put together. Spent about 4 hours on the phone with tech support between Microsoft and Amazon. Did I tell you about this?
No.
So building the new studio computer, it's looks great. It's going to be it's really running nice. But so I put I have a copy of Windows 10 that I bought years ago. I go install it. Everything's going good. I go to activate it. It's like, you can't activate this. This isn't a valid code. And I was like, okay. So I contact Microsoft. Hey, why does it say it's not a valid code? They're like, oh, can you give us the code? So I'm reading the code from the friggin' retail box of this Windows 10 there, and like, oh, that's a pirated code. I was like, well, it's a Microsoft box that I bought from from Amazon. That's Windows, and it's your stuff. It's all, I got the little USB key it comes with, all that stuff. And like, yeah, well, somebody must have used a code to generate like and figured out your code. So we can't so yeah, you can't activate it. And I'm like, but do you see what I'm saying here? Like, this is like, it's not my problem that somebody figured out my code. Like, I bought this code. Like, you're gonna have to contact the place you bought it from. I'm like, it was Amazon. It was like 5 years ago. Like, what do you want me to do? They're like, oh yeah, just contact them. I'm like, how are they going to be able to help me better than you? This is your product. Like,
Yeah.
so Amazon, they must transfer me to like 12 different people. And they'd be like, I tell them what the problem is. They're like, oh, let me transfer you to the team that will best help you with this. Wait 5 minutes. Oh, hey, I'm so-and-so here to help you. Tell them what the problem is. Oh, you know what? Let me transfer you to the team that's best going to help you with this. Literally like 5 times in a row. By the 5th time, I was like, listen, like, please don't tell me you're going to transfer me to the team. Oh, no, I assure you, we're going to help you. We're going to solve this. And then after like 10 minutes, let me transfer you to the team that's best going to help.
Oh God.
It was like 3 hours, I think, just with Amazon. It was so annoying. Still haven't figured it out. So I just bought a new copy of Windows 11, and I'm like, I'm going to start that out on the back end, and hopefully they can do something for me. But
I'm impressed that you got in touch with like Amazon. I don't even know how you're supposed to call them up.
Yeah, they keep that real secret. You have to, if you just like Google, you can't find it on their website. You have to like Google, like, how the hell do I find the Amazon number? And then they'll tell you.
I mean,
Very
usually
hidden.
what happens is like, if I ever have a problem, it's just like, you just go tap, tap, tap. And then they're just like, here's a code to return it, or
Oh yeah,
keep it. That's about it.
That's easy unless you bought it 5 years ago, in which case nobody knows what to do.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I haven't
and honestly, I
encountered
can't
that
blame
one
them.
yet.
Why should it be their problem? They didn't do anything wrong. They sold me a legitimate thing that doesn't work, and it's not their thing.
No, I agree with you. It's just like if somebody, like if somebody figured out like how to break into your house, that's your problem. It's like, no. It's like, it's your problem because you're the one that sold me the faulty lock or something like that. Somebody figured out the code that your company made, so give me what I paid for. I see what you're saying about the key. It's like, you paid for the key, maybe somebody else figured it out, but oh well, so it's still yours. You're the one that purchased it, so give me it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Or just generate a new key for me. It's like, I'm showing you that I have the legitimate thing, But anyway,
Yeah.
Enough of that. So yeah, I lost about a day on getting the computer set up. with that one, unfortunately, but it's coming along pretty good. I think probably not by next episode, but maybe the episode after that will be on the new computer, which will be pretty cool. And will be no noticeable difference to our listeners probably. But speaking of people that help support our show and donate, we do have some people to thank, and starting off with our executive level patrons. Oh, you know what? I don't even have this window open now. Starting off with our executive level patrons at the in memoriam tier, the wonderful late Gerald Jerry Kelly. Really appreciate him and his family for their support over the years. We have at the $25 uncommon man tier, we have Ovis Nakvi and Purple Maniac. At the 15 squid tier, we have Alan. And at the $10 good doctor tier, we have Dr. Mike Catan.
Somebody get me some doctor.
If you turn it up to $11 tier, we have Clay Wambacher, Frank Thielgard Mortensen, Mickelstein, Will Porter, PhD PP, and Michael Bagford. And at the $10 someone came tier, Ryan M., Jeff Bryce, Victor Campos, Better Call Saul Evans, and Peter from Illinois. And at the Hughesoween by 2033 tier, we have Fielding Fowler. I'll hopefully have something for the next episode for that, because I had a good idea that would tie in with these episodes, but
Oh yeah.
yeah, but then I didn't do it because there's been too much shit to do lately. Quite frankly. So, as promised, we last Saturday, almost a week ago, I went to go see Glenn Hughes at the Arcada
Woo!
Theater in scenic St. Charles, Illinois, the pickle capital of the world. And yeah, it was incredible. So I met up with Glenn before the folks from the show, which was pretty cool. So I got there, and I'm just like, I don't know, I always feel kind of a jerk, because Glenn was like, I'll put your name on my list, and I was like, what does that mean? So I went there and I'm like, I'm on the list. And they're like, what's your name? And they find the name, like, oh yeah, we'll and it was just like, there was like a lot of layers, like, oh, so and so will be here to bring you down, and but everyone's very like, they don't know, like, is this like okay, like everyone's which is good, they're protecting the artist, right? They don't want to just bring in some schmuck who's they're gonna be like, why the hell did you bring the guy back here? So the place that the venue is like an old, I guess it was one of Al Capone's old I don't know if you'd say like offices or hideouts or whatever it was, but apparently the green room is Al Capone's old brothel. So they brought
Nice.
me downstairs, and I'm standing in this little alcove with this woman that works there and this other guy who I have no idea who he is. And she was really, really nice, and she was telling me about the history of the building. That's what she told me. Oh yeah, that room there is, she's like, I don't know if you're gonna go in there or if he's gonna come out or whatever, but that's Al Capone's brothel. It used to be his brothel. I was like, oh wow. So yeah, after a few minutes, they're like, okay, you come on in, Glenn's here. And then they took me into this room, and it was just like a very brightly, like, neon green painted room, like very bright colors. And they're like, Glenn is ready to see you. So I go there, and he's just sitting in a chair, and I say hello, and oh, hey Nate, how you doing? Like, we're old friends. And I'm like, oh wow.
And it was just him?
It was just him and me in a room, and it was just like, wow.
Wow.
But he didn't have a ton of time, because he was doing a meet and greet and all that sort of stuff. So we were maybe 15-20 minutes, but just chatted about stuff.
15, 20 minutes is a good chunk of time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was great, because I was like, wow, like, because I had come prepared to do an interview if he wanted to do it, but I was like, well, 15-20 minutes isn't going to cut it for an interview, so let's just chat. He just told me about a bunch of stuff about what's coming up with him, and a lot of stuff where he was like, well, I could tell you off the air, but he was like, you can't tell anybody this, but kind of like he did with us, don't tell anybody this, but then
and then he
like,
told
he's gonna get
everybody on stage
and say it all, but he didn't. So I was like, okay, I won't tell anybody except maybe John.
Yeah.
But yeah, just telling stuff about what's coming up with him, what he's working on, the Black Country Communion album that's coming out, and yeah, just, it was really, really cool. And then I got him to record something for the show. I got him to record something for you because it was your birthday.
That was awesome.
Yeah, sent you a video from Glenn.
That was very awesome, and I appreciate that.
But it was cool. It was kind of like, it reminded me of like kind of visiting with like visiting with a relative. Like you go and you're just like, we're both sitting in a room. It's like, oh hey, what's up? Yeah. Like, you're sitting in that chair, I'm sitting in this chair. It's like, okay, cool, and He signed a few things for me, and just talked. It was great. And he was talking a lot too. He's like about touring and about how it's like, oh, touring after 50 is it can take it can it can really take a lot out of you. I'm like, well, geez, you're 72. Like, that's not, I mean, you see him on stage, it's like he's not acting like
Nope.
this is taking anything out of him. It's just
Yeah.
I don't know how but the thing that really struck me is just he was so like calm and serene back. He was just sitting there, and he's like, it was like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go do an absolutely killer rock and roll show in in an hour or whatever the opening acts are up. And he just could not have been more like calm and just at peace with himself and with everything around. It was really cool. It was a special moment. It was pretty cool to have those moments with now two, even though we saw him before too, but with two bass players of Deep Purple now.
Yeah.
Just gonna fly out and hang out with Nikki once, and we'll have it all covered.
Yeah. The trifecta.
But yeah, then after that, went across the street. There was this really cool Mexican place, and Dr. Mike Catan was there, which I learned it's Catan, not Catan, because I heard him give his name to the waitress for the reservation. I was like, I've been pronouncing your name wrong all this time. He's like, I'm used to it. I don't even care.
All right.
Um,
Well,
but super nice guy. And then Peter and Ryan were there, who we both met before, and they were super super nice. Although we met Peter really briefly in the lobby of the at
mhm.
the and was in St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
So it was good to really hang out with him for a more extended time. He used to live right in the area, so he was very familiar with the theater. And Ryan had been there a bunch of times too. So it was really cool. We hung out. We had some good Mexican food. We went across, and Ryan knew Chips Enough was in the line, and Ryan kind of knew him from the bands he plays with. So he went, he's like, hey Chip, and he's like, hey, what's going on, man? And he gave him like one of those little like shoulder bumps, like, hey, what's up? And they were just chatting. And it was funny actually, because Ryan has a band. And we were at dinner, and this guy came over and was like, goes up to Ryan, he's like, hey, are you the guitar player in Killiam? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, I swear to God, I didn't set that up.
Wow.
So I was like, wow, man, this guy's getting recognized. Good for Ryan M. But yeah, it was a good time. We had really cool seats, like up on the opera box, sort of, and
Mhm.
yeah, really good view. Just kind of looking down on the show, and just yeah, amazing. No, great show. They I put a couple videos up on our YouTube channel, but they did just an amazing show, and lots of young people there too. Like, I was looking down, and like, the place was pretty full. It wasn't sold out, but it was pretty full. And there was, there was those kids, with the hair that looks like bananas, like a bunch of bananas.
That's the first time I've heard it described that way, but so accurate.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
It's all
Yeah, that
swoopy and curves
yeah, that
out. Like, there
yeah,
were kids like there
that
with
flip
that. So
hairdo, yeah.
yeah, they must have been 15, 16. I'm like, wow. I mean, clearly they were there with their parents or whatever, but they were rocking out at a rock show. So good for them.
Well, I mean, we
Um,
saw that at the one we went to in Worcester. I mean, like that whole couple of rows
yeah.
in front of us was like really young guys. Like,
Yeah. Like that guy that was like so into Ingve. He was like,
oh
he
my
was,
God, yeah. It was like fucking head
he was
banging,
young.
whipping his head around. Well, I think that's good. I mean, just like now that we're the elder statesmen of rock here, it's
Yeah, I know. Right now we're the old guys at the show.
cool to see guys more than half our age discovering and listening to this music and thinking it's awesome. So now it's like I kind of know how, people, in their 40s and 50s felt when we were teenagers and discovering stuff that were from when they were teenagers. So it's a cool feeling because you don't feel like you're alone. You don't feel
Yeah,
like, oh, this
exactly.
is dinosaur music or something.
Exactly. But yeah, it was cool. And backstage got to meet the drummer Ash Sheehan, who is really cool. He was very, he's a great showman. But backstage he was like, so I told him that I like, because Steve Hunt, one of the folks that listens to our show and we communicate with a lot, he's like, don't go to the bathroom during the drum solo because it's incredible. And I was like, oh, I won't, because we had seen the drum solo in Worcester. But yeah, he
Yeah.
just put on an amazing drum solo. And his guitar player Soren came back while it was there and got to shake his hand and meet him real quick. And him and Glenn were just talking. He's like, all we do is talk about shoes. He's like, oh, I love those shoes you're wearing. He's like, oh, thanks. And he was wearing like these Converse and
that's awesome.
so yeah, they were I was like, I don't know how Glenn wears those like Converse. I can't even wear those like with they've got like no arch support, but
Yeah. Well, hey, it's all
Glenn
about
is
comfort. At least he's not wearing those big like orthopedic Frankenstein shoes at his age, like fucking Gene Simmons. When you ever see that, it's just like you see guys like his age, right? And it's like they look their age. But I
yeah,
think
yeah.
one of the defining things, well, first of all, like all of them wear sunglasses, which I think is hilarious because
Yep.
it's they're trying to cover their eye bags and wrinkles and shit. Fine, whatever. It's a cool look, okay. And then you could wear t-shirts and ripped jeans, and you could do whatever you want with the outfit. But the thing that always ruins it for me is the shoes. Which,
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
hey, I get it. I get it. You get older and you got plantar fasciitis and bone spurs or whatever else, and you get
I had plantar fasciitis when I was in my like early 40s.
or whatever. I mean, Pops wears those types of shoes, so sometimes he'll come out with this perfectly good outfit on, and then these big clunky like Frankenstein monster shoes, and I'm like, change those, take those off. But
Yeah, you won't be saying that when you need them.
hey, all right, I already, what do you call it? Full disclosure, I already have a pair of these like Skechers slip-ons that like I saw at my
Yep.
parents' house that Pops has, and I was like, I put them on once to take the dog out, and I was like, wow, these are comfortable. So I found a pair for myself.
Yeah, while you're walking the dog, you're on, Zappos or
Yeah,
whatever ordering.
yeah. I did buy them in a different color though, because wearing them to my parents' house, Pops would 100% accuse me of stealing them from him if I bought the exact same ones.
You'd be like,
Which
no, they're
he
right there. No, you stole them.
even though they're a different size, I'm like Pops's feet are huge, so it's like I'm like Pops, they're not like a size like 13, okay? Like I don't have freakishly large feet.
Yeah, my dad
Um,
has really huge feet too, like that too.
but why does the older
What
generation have
size shoe do
such
you
big
have?
feet? 10 and a half.
Yeah, I'm like a 10.
Which I think
Like,
is like 10, 10 and a half is like average size. Anything smaller or bigger, I think is like a little outside the norm. But anyways, when I see rockers or I see people trying to portray an image, the shoes are really what does it for me. Like boots, Converse sneakers. I always find it cool when like older guys like that, like 20, 30 years older than we are wearing cool shoes. I know that it's just one of those things that I notice.
yeah, well, you and Glenn and Soren all notice.
Hmm.
But yeah, he was I mean, seeing him and like the room that we were in was extremely well lit. It was bright and he wasn't wearing sunglasses. Well, he was wearing like slightly tinted glasses, but I mean up close, like being right next to him in a brightly lit room, I'm like, this guy looks great. Like 72 years old. I mean,
Hard to believe too with the life that he has lived.
it's just unreal. Like he looks great. I mean, like I don't know, good for him. And like his hair and his face and it doesn't. I mean, doesn't look like he's wearing any makeup. Has he had if he's had any work done, it's been very good work. Like it doesn't show. It's not like he's wearing these. He has these giant lips and this weird looking. Like the smooth Botox forehead and all that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
he just looks like a young guy. Like good for him.
Well, I mean that's
I wish I could look that good in 5 years. Never mind 20 or 30.
well, I mean it is pretty awesome. I mean even some of these guys, I mean honestly, even like meeting the guys from Deep Purple, like when we met Roger and Don Airey and even
Yep.
Ian Pace a couple of years ago. I mean, yeah, I mean these guys are looking their age, but I mean, like even Roger, we've seen more than once. It's just like just seeing pictures of him now and seeing pictures of him like even 30 years ago, like his look hasn't changed that much. Like
No.
I think it's, he takes care of himself and he's just generally like a happy dude. So it's like, I think that has a lot to do with it is just, your mindset and sometimes, good genes, it doesn't hurt, I'm sure, but
Well, and I'm sure keeping active, like a lot of,
yeah.
people his age that are retired, they're maybe just sitting on the couch or whatever, not doing much. But this guy's out. He's on tour buses. He's doing it. I mean, he also just, keeps his weight. Like he's so thin and, like not by any means, he looks just very healthy. He doesn't,
Yeah.
he's thin, but not like some of these
Probably.
old guy like Iggy Pop or whatever look like a
Ugh.
skeleton, but he looks
Yeah.
like just very healthy. So anyway, good for him.
Mm.
It was great hanging out with the patrons. Amazing show. Maybe I'll put in a little of the music as a background or something while we talk. But
Well, you'll hear my report next week because
yeah, and then on
I
the
am
next episode.
going to
So
see
yeah,
him later tonight.
the funny thing is, tonight. The funny thing is, we were going to do a different album today in our next episode, and I was like, well, maybe we should do a Glenn Hughes album. So I
Yeah, why not?
changed it because I was like, it didn't really make much sense to do this album completely unrelated to Glenn Hughes, and then we'd have 2 reviews of Glenn Hughes. So this make it more Glenn Hughes focused, the episodes. I feel like there's some stuff I'm leaving out because it was just such a fun night. I had to work super early the next morning. We all had long drives, and Mike had to wake up early, take a flight back, so he flew there for that. And so
Wow. That's
yeah,
pretty
but it
cool.
was
Yeah.
yeah, really good time. Mike and Peter and Ryan could not have been more fun to hang out with, and just very generous and bought me lots of drinks. And
Awesome.
rough next day at the work, next day at work, especially with the Super Bowl, but it was well worth it for the hang. And my good friend, your little friend here, so, came with us and met Glenn again, my furry friend here, my little beef
Don
eater.
King.
Don King. Exactly. Okay, so what are we here to discuss now? We are talking about and upcoming shows. February. We didn't even talk about Bad Marriage and Enough's Enough. So that was like a lot. Maybe, you know what? We could probably save it because we can compare notes when you go next
Yeah.
week.
Yes.
Or
Or
tonight, I should say. So yeah, there's one Bad Marriage song in particular I would have loved to be next to like you and Gardeau, because there was like, I was like, I would have loved to just see the Gardeau's reaction. So I'm
all right.
interested to. You'll know when it happens.
Yeah, I'll just hear him go. I'll be flying in the
Yeah,
background.
and Enough's Enough does one of his favorite Paul McCartney songs that he
Oh
hates.
boy.
So I'm looking forward to seeing his reaction to that.
Oh,
But yes, Vi Satriani, April 18th, making plans to go see that. That's the next show that I'm going to go see. So look forward to hopefully meeting up with some patrons there. Okay, Glenn Hughes, here we are. From Now On, the album from 1994. John, have you ever heard this one?
um, I don't think so. I'm not too familiar with Hughes's solo albums post blues. Like I remember getting the blues solo album at the time, not knowing if it was his first solo album, if it was his 10th or whatever. I mean, first modern day at the time, because I obviously knew about Play Me Out. And then I think there was that one. And then everything after that, there was I think it was was it the Burning Japan live one?
Yeah.
That CD I had owned because I picked it up at an import place, which doesn't really count as like a new CD, but his like thing of like original material.
Yep.
I don't think that I've really listened to too much of that stuff, if at all. So
Well, the Burning Japan Live is from the tour for this album.
okay.
So it's got a lot of the same musicians.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the songs you might recognize from that. That is just an incredible live album. I'm looking forward to doing that one day. So he does do some of the songs on that. But on this album, and you'll see a theme coming, we've got on bass, and I'm probably going to mispronounce all these names because I'm not as familiar with Europe as I should be. On bass, he has John Leven or Leven. I will say Leven. He's the bassist for Europe, and he's one of only 2 of the members of Europe, along with Joey Tempest, to perform on all of their albums. He also played with Glenn live on Burning Japan Live. On drums, we have Hempo Hilden, also alias Hempo Hobo, not Hempo Drifter.
Hempo Drifter.
That's his American name. His real name is Henrik Hilden. He also played with Don Dokken, and he was a percussionist in jazz group Splash. Sadly, passed away a couple years ago in 2022. On guitar we have Eric Boyfelt, I'll say. Most of his credits are with Glenn Hughes, and then Thomas Larson on guitar, who played with the band Baltimore. And then on keyboards, Mick McKaylee, who was most famous as a member of Europe. He has tons and tons of work as a studio guy. And then obviously on vocals, Glenn Hughes. The interesting thing about this album is it's one of the few albums where Glenn does not play bass. He only sings.
Boo, poser.
Well, hopefully, John Levin
Mm.
will make you feel better. But yeah, boo, no Glenn Hughes playing bass on this one.
Boo, why is he such a poser? How come he doesn't play bass anymore?
Well, it's extra funny too because he always kind of says in interviews that he feels awkward when he's not playing bass, and that was kind of one of his issues when he was in Black Sabbath. So anyway, there you go. So this one, let me see if I can get to. Here we go. Engineered by Anders Eliasson. He was a member of the band Lambretta, and he also produced the Swedish band Small, Fat, and Beautiful, which I think I sent you and Jonathan a picture of in the chat.
Yeah.
I wanted to see if Jonathan knew anything about him because it's just a really funny. I don't think I have the picture handy, but it's just a very funny image. So
yeah, which I compared to the Heart Foundation.
Yeah, exactly. Very bright pinks and blues and everything.
Yeah.
It was mixed by the producer Bruce Gowdy, and Dave Allard, who worked with Fleetwood Mac, Oingo Boingo. He worked on the Hughes Thrall album, Donna Summer, Gordon Lightfoot, Rod Stewart, a lot of big names. Matt Gruber, who worked extensively with Desmond Child, was a mix assistant, and the engineer Bruce Gowdy produced a bunch of albums, and he was in the band called World Trade. And then yeah, with that, it takes us right to the album art. John, what do you think of this album cover?
You know what? I believe that I did own this album.
Okay, it's changing.
Yep. See, I told you.
I know this album very well.
Yeah, actually, I don't. I think it might have been the blues album and then this one. I remember purchasing, but not. You know, the train of thought back when you're younger is, oh, it's Glenn Hughes, and it didn't sound exactly like 1974 Deep Purple. So I'm just like, whatever, and then I just never listened to it again. But you know, idiot. But anyways, I think it's a cool album cover looking at it now, even then, because I thought that the whole cowboy thing, the whole cowboy theme was pretty cool. That he was doing here. I love the fringe brown jacket and the cowboy boots. Actually, if you the style from the waist down is what I typically do now anyways. So it's just like the jeans and the cowboy boots when I go out.
Wear cowboy boots?
Yeah, or actually they're not like, yeah, well they're very similar. They're called Chelsea boots. They don't go all the way up, but they're very cowboy boot looking, very comfortable actually too. I had a pair of cowboy boots, I think I got them in high school because I wanted to have this kind of look, and they just proved to be very not comfortable. So I gave them up for a long time. But for Hughes at the time anyway, I think this is a pretty cool look. I think it's a cool album cover. Looks like he's just sitting on this office this doctor's office chair out in the desert.
Yeah. He looks like Morpheus should be sitting on the other side of him, like that scene in the Matrix.
Yeah, just kind of reflecting there. I mean, yeah, I think it's a pretty neat album cover. I like how he has a logo, like his own logo, and if you're really looking into it, a lot of the colors, the color scheme kind of matches because you have the red, white, and that kind of like that crimson red, not like a fire engine, white and blue, and the GH logo matches the chair, the jacket matches the shoes, and as well as the Glenn Hughes logo, and then that kind of like pop of blue up there. So it's I always thought it was kind of a neat looking album cover. And like I said, it looks like he's sitting on like the hill of a desert or a dune or something like that. So very, very kind of I don't know, desert western type of vibe to it, but not like I didn't look at this and think like, oh, it's going to be country music, but it has a very cool look to it.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm associating that with being a dune back there too. It almost kind of looks like Whoosh, like the Whoosh album cover.
Oh yeah.
Like you expect to see the spaceman like pop out behind him. Hey. But yeah, it's a cool album cover. You know the first thing I always think of when I see this album cover is that, remember those TDK ads where the guy's in the chair and he's getting like blown back?
Oh yeah, yeah.
It kind of reminds me of that. But yeah, cool album cover. Looks like he swiped a few rings from David Coverdale. Maybe he's got like the turquoise rings on. But yeah, and it's got that the dune behind it, but it's very very washed out. Got
Yeah.
a washed out look to it.
You know, the only thing that bothers me though, or it's always bothered me, is like his right leg, like his foot is kind of tilted at a weird angle. Like I always like just like I wish he had like turned like his ankle and his toe up a little more because it looks like kind of off center. That's like my OCD.
Oh, I never noticed that. We get really getting the fine details on this album cover.
Well, I
John would
mean,
have
I'm
called for.
just
They would put this on John's desk. He would have like thrown it back at him. Get a reshoot, but it's gonna cost us. I don't care what it costs us. We can't send it out with this shoe all crooked like that.
it does. It's like it looks crooked. It looks like his ankle is kind of bent weird. But
Yeah.
like I said, it's my OCD criticism.
It's definitely a little over the top, but yeah. So this album cover the layout was done by On Jerv, and the photography by Mats Oscarsson. Couldn't really find any credits by either of them, so I'm not sure what their backgrounds were. But yeah, it's a pretty cool album cover. Then you get into the booklet here, and you've got um, that kind of theme going. It looks like more things from the same photo shoot, but less stylized. So Glenn with his cowboy hat and his fringe jacket. And it says, "I hope you'll enjoy listening to this album as much as I enjoyed writing, singing, and performing it. I thank God for giving me the gift to make music, Glenn." Um, and then there's another picture of him. I thought he was holding a gun at first there, but it's just his fringe of his jacket. It'd be great if he had a 6-shooter. Um, there he is doing like a little cross stand.
Little
Says,
Blackmore's Night.
yeah, oh
Or
yeah,
not
it does.
Blackmore's Night, or what do you call it?
Yeah,
The
Rainbow.
rainbow.
Did he
Looks
steal
like
it
the
from Glenn? Because that was the next year, right? So
yeah.
he was
So
standing
yeah,
at the
that's
foot.
almost looks exactly the same.
Yeah. And it says, "God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, the wisdom to know the difference." The classic quote there. A little nice picture of Glenn's close up. And then the back cover, he's kind of crouched down, holding the old cowboy hat. So yeah, he definitely in the liner notes takes a religious kind of stance, and which now I know he wasn't I think he had a few kind of bouts of getting clean and then having relapses, and he had his final kind of uh became sober for the last time in 97 and has continued that to the present day. So I don't know if he was, this is the only real period where I see him specifically mentioning like religious things like that, whereas now he's very spiritual, but he's not like specifically saying God and Jesus. He's more like now
Yeah.
he's more like just kind of very spiritual. So I know that some people going through recovery kind of can certainly latch on to stuff like that to help them through the process. So that might have been what was going on here, but looks looks really great. This is, I think, the copy of the Japanese back, and I think we'll do the Japanese version because we're doing a two-parter, and the Japanese version has 2 bonus tracks which are remakes of Deep Purple songs. So why not
Right.
just throw them in the mix?
I know that I know at least back then all of that God and Jesus stuff and the quotes about grant me the serenity and everything.
Yeah.
When we were like 17, 18, I was all right, whatever. I mean, I get it now,
Yeah.
but back then it
Right.
was just kind of, it almost made it seem like, uh, I don't know. You didn't want to hear that from your rockers. You wanted to hear like, "Bleh." You wanted to be like nuts, like he was at the California Jam. You want to be like, oh, my higher power. And I mean, I get where he's coming from, but like
Sure.
when I was a kid, I didn't want to hear that. I wanted everybody to be like, I wanted him to be like he was in 74, like all friggin' wild and everything. I mean, I didn't know what the story was, but
Right.
it's
Of
like,
course. Yeah.
oh, I'm glad that he got clean and found peace like that long ago, actually. But yeah, to me, it didn't seem very rock and roll,
Yeah, what's the difference between being a 20-year-old rocker and then a 40-year-old kind of cleaning yourself up and doing all that? So yeah, it's a different, for sure, a different attitude. But yeah, that's the kind of rundown of that part of the album, and then we'll get right into the music after we thank our next level of patrons, which is of course our core level. So here we go. Coming in at the $7.77 Keep It Warm Rat tier, we have Michael Vader. At the $6.99 new nice price tier, we have Spike the Rock Cat and Sugar Tea. At the episode $6.66 tier, we have Steve Coldwell and Arthur Smith.
Getting support from the patron Arthur Smith.
Anton Glaving and Charles Meadows. At the $6.65 Almost Evil tier, we have Kenny Wymore and Richie Sucksmith. At the $6 What's Going On Here tier, Richard Fusey. At the $5.99 The Nice Price tier, Robert Smith and Carl Helberg. At the 60 kroner Scandinavian Nights tier, Newt Morton Johansson.
It's a great life if you know we can.
At the $5 Moneylender tier, John Convery, German Heindel, Adrian Hernandez, Jesper Alman, Alexei the Perfect Stranger Slepikov, Kev Roberts, Percival Frequency, Scott Zern, Cynthia Doobie, Raf Calf, and Coyote Bongwater. All right, thank you to all of you for your generous support of the Deep Purple podcast. I just realized something, and we kind of put this in sometimes in different spots of the show. But before we actually do get into the album, as we've been teasing you poor listeners to for 40 minutes now, there's one thing that I have been putting off that we didn't do last week, and more has been added to that, and that is postcards from the edge of Connecticut. So a few little kind of weird makeup ones. So these actually came in on the same day, but one of them is dated January 1st, and the other one's dated January 26th, but they came in the mail on the same day. That's, I guess, what you get for those postcard stamps. They're both from, well, actually, let's see. I have to look at this. So one of them is, let's go with the one on the first. Nate, a Happy New Year greeting for you from Virginia, from the Gardeau, and it's got a little picture of the MacArthur Memorial, City Hall Ave and Bank Street, Norfolk, Virginia. It shows you where everything is. It's like, here's where the gift shop is. It's like almost like a little map. Parking, 200 spaces, and it's got the hours on it. But this is an old one. You can tell it's kind of discolored. And then this one from the Casablanca Cafe, and it says, Nate. Now here is the last postcard from Florida for you, and we've already gotten the old ones. So these both came like almost the end of January, early February. Fort Lauderdale, Florida, an American piano bar and restaurant. The Jova House, built in 1927. So I was doing that, and then I was getting ready to get the kids to school this morning, and Jen reached into one of the bins to get a hat for them and pulled this, but it's somehow fallen in the hat bin. Season's greetings. It says it's dated Christmas.
Oh.
So then we're finding them all over the house. These two actually came in late. So this one must have just got accidentally dumped in the bin and all the crazy Christmas lead up. But it's like a little jigsaw puzzle that it looks like Pete has taped so that it won't fall apart. Or maybe it came that way so it won't fall apart. It's a little jigsaw puzzle of Christmas. It says, Nate, now here's a Christmas greeting for you, Peter. And it says, Season's Greeting Drum. The 1980 holiday season stamp issued was the first to bear the legend Season's Greetings, based on an original painting executed for the stamp. So it's a postcard of a stamp.
All right, very cool. Wow, that just brings it full circle.
Exactly. Now here we are getting Christmas cards and anyway. Just wanted to make sure we touched on that, since the postcards are backing up here on my desk, and they keep getting covered up and I forget to go over them. So, all right, are we ready to get into some Glenn Hughes?
I was ready an hour ago.
Yeah, you were. We had some technical difficulties before we started, but which is we should be used to by now. But here we go We are starting with the opening track here, Picking Up the Pieces. A little roaring organ to get started.
Well, this could have been recorded the other day. Listening to his voice.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. This one was written by Glenn Hughes and Bruce Gowdy, the producer. That was kind of a cool little, I don't even know what that was, but a cool little stop with that. Sounded almost like horns. Haha, yes. Yeah, he's got some grit in his voice on this one. In a very good way.
Yeah, well, definitely sounds like he's returning to like the rock roots.
Yeah, very
of
rock,
Deep
very
Purple.
soulful on the chorus.
You know, with the keyboard.
Oh, that's what. Yeah, that.
Yeah,
it's
but
like
even the beginning, and like you got that kind of Hammond sound in the background. Not that, but
that was kind of snarl.
yeah.
Could have named Burning Japan Live "Made with Europe." You got so many Europe musicians on here.
Haha.
Or to name this album. I wonder how he kind of made that connection with the guys from Europe. Nice solo. That kind of almost, that progression almost sounded like Highway Star. You know, that dun, 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 like that.
Almost sounded like he put a little something from Burn in there when he holds that note.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Song's got a great energy. It's very busy, but not overly busy, but it's very all these little like kind of like background riffs going on. What you gonna do when the whip comes down? Oh, nice little outro organ solo. I cut it off too early, I think.
Yeah.
I liked where that was going. But all right, Picking Up the Pieces. A lot of energy on that one, John. What do you think?
I'll give that one a 3. I thought
Alright.
it was pretty good. It sounded yeah, it was a good song. The production sounded very like mid high endy. Even like the guitars, you know, had that kind of like really mid-range sound. Not a very full kind of sound. Like, you know, that I always tend toward the the really warm analog full
Mhm.
sound, like a full bass, like a really fat guitar, that type of thing. And this just sounded very I mean, it was well produced. It's very clean, very
Mhm.
kind of like, I would say it's like slick. I wouldn't say like 80s slick, but definitely like early 90s slick. But it sounded good. I could see now why I probably wasn't too drawn to it back then. This is like, it's good, but it's not like, it's not heavy. It's not the type of heavy that I'm drawn to. But that being said, is that I mean, Glenn sounds good, as you know, to be expected. You know, guitar solo was kind of nondescript, but you know, there were kind of a couple of cool elements in there. I definitely like that he seems to always do the same thing. Is like he always trends toward his lane, you know, like
Yeah.
he put in like the keyboards, the keyboard sound, like I said, which is reminiscent of stuff that he would do with it, with his time in Purple, which some people would be like, ah, I don't want to be associated with that. So it's, yeah, even what he's doing now, like the deep cuts and stuff like that, like I feel like Hughes has always been good in some degree of giving his fans what they want.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I think I'll give it a 3.5. I think I see what you're saying about the production. It sounds a little bit more late 80s, and you know, probably just the background that the producer had was probably from that time period. But yeah, I didn't, nothing about the bass stood out to me, but probably as a production, like I don't know, I couldn't tell you what the bass player was doing. I'm sure he's a great bass player, but maybe on other songs it'll be a little bit more evident. But I really love the energy on this song. I think it's you know, it's a good one. I can't remember if he does. I can't remember which ones he does on Burning Japan Live, but I should probably pull that up while we're doing the next track. But yeah, it's I really like the energy. I kind of like I like the vocals, I like the lyrics, and yeah, obviously everything he's doing vocally is kind of standard Glenn Hughes, just tearing it up vocally. But yeah, it sounds like the band he had together for this one was really good, and you definitely hear that on Burning Japan Live, so which we'll cover one of these days.
yeah, which by
Okay.
most accounts is you know, definitely an album I think a lot of people would be excited to hear, because I know Rich really likes it.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I know you've said, and I can't remember a couple of other people who say it's a really great live album.
It was one of those ones I had like, I don't want to say I listened to it accidentally, but it was like I had like some Glenn Hughes albums
Hmm.
like that I had ripped to iTunes or whatever, and it was one of those ones that just like it came up one day, and I was just like, "What is this?" And I was like, "Oh!" I mean, knew it was Glenn, obviously, but and then I was like, I just have to listen to this more carefully. And I listened to it a few times in the car, and I was just like, "Man, what a
Yeah.
live performance! Just so strong." So, okay, next track up is a track called "Lay My Body Down." And this is one he's done live a
Yeah.
ton.
Yeah, this is yeah, we've heard
This,
him do this.
and he does this on Burning Japan Live.
Very bluesy based song. Sounds like it could have been on blues.
Yep. He's got that great Hammond sound on this song. You can sort of hear the bass, but it's very low, and it's EQ'd in such a way where it kind of blends in a little.
Yeah.
I wonder what made him decide to not play bass on this one. His bass playing the other night was, of the 3 times I've seen him, the best. He was on fire that night.
I know it's the tempo of the song, but it feels kind of low energy. Maybe in comparison to the other versions we've heard. Because, sometimes a tempo on an album will be slower than live versions.
Yeah. Well, I think you want this one to be a little more slinky, a little more sexy. Oh, the bass is popping out now here. And it took like a weird neoclassical turn there for the solo.
Yeah.
It was cool though.
I don't know if I really like the guitar tone though so far on the album.
I think the playing's really good, but it is a little thin, and it's
No, it is. It sounds very thin, maybe very like, I don't know, very like bridge middle pickup type of tone.
Well, it's EQ'd in such a way that like during the solo, I feel like I was hearing the hi-hat at with the same level of importance as the guitar, which probably shouldn't happen during a guitar solo.
Yeah. I mean, I get that's also like personal preference too, I think.
Sure.
For a guitar sound. Like, you remember we were talking about the Dio episode, the Sweet Savage song that we heard, which was basically he used that for the Dio riff.
Yeah.
And like that whole intro, I was just like, wow, now they have produced that the way that it was on the Sweet Savage demo.
Yeah,
I might actually like
Savage version better.
Yeah, well, I mean, just the sound, just the way that it was produced. But again, like I said, it goes down to like personal preference. Like some people would probably be like, "What are you, nuts?" Like the Dio one is classic. That other thing is shit.
And I forgot to mention, but this one was written by Hughes and Larson. It's kind of like a slinky sort of almost mistreated style. Whoa. That keyboard sound, wow, right at the end there reminds me of that remember the keyboard I had? That
Yeah.
Alesis keyboard? Whoa.
Yeah.
Just did a little weird. I mean,
like
it could do that patch.
It could do anything. It could make any noise.
E-Rock would use it to like do his Yanni impression.
which basically consisted of him just like hitting a chord and then just like holding his head back like this.
And he was like, he put his hand out like this. Like, I got a video of that somewhere.
Good
But
stuff.
yeah, that's funny. It was funny because it had like that like I said, that neoclassical interlude in the middle, which was like, wow, kind of unexpected. And at the end, it turned into like a full-on prog, like boom.
Yeah.
Very, it's like, whoa, where did that come from? But all right, Lay My Body Down. What do you give this one?
I'm gonna have to give it a 2.5.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like I get what you're saying, that it's supposed to be a slinky, kind of slower type of blues song, but I think maybe the way it was presented or produced or even performed just didn't work as well for me. So yeah.
Yeah, it's hard ranking the songs when you know like other versions of them. Like I think I have to give this one a 3 because I think there's other versions I'd give a 4 or maybe even higher because I really do like this one. But yeah, there's something about the production on this one where it's just like it's good and I really like the song, so that's what's kind of keeping me interested. But yeah, probably not my favorite version of the song, but it's but I like I said, I really like the song. So 3 from me. And the next song is, hopefully it's not going to be the only one on the album, but it's called The Only One. Hopefully we have no ones on this album. I don't think we will. But here you go. The Only One, third track on the album. I swear he was using the same keyboard that I had.
He probably did.
After this. Oh wow, sounds like the Police. The bass is really has a nice tone on this one. It cuts through better. It's reminding me of that on the can't think of it because the song's playing. On the King of Wishful Thinking. Not anymore, of course, but the beginning.
This reminds me of a Hughes Thrall.
Yeah, this definitely has a...
Definitely has like big 80s vibes in it.
Oh yeah, huge.
I mean, Hughes is a good songwriter. I mean, he even they had that song he submitted to Ghostbusters, so...
That's right.
I mean, not everything was gold, but I mean, the man definitely is in touch with how to write a kind of like a catchy anthemic type chorus.
I think if he had been a little more, if he had been as prolific in the 80s as he was in the 90s,
Yeah.
he would have been on every movie soundtrack ever.
Yeah, I mean, if he had released this like 6-7 years before this, like at the height of the 80s, this could have been a theme song to something, or...
Why isn't he on the Karate Kid soundtrack? Like, he should be. If Hughes
Yeah, like you
stuck together.
Yeah, I mean, you just see like the montage of like, them bowing and doing karate exercises.
Silhouette of Daniel-san on the little thing in the water and doing the kick. Wow, doing all this like Jeff Beck work on that with that whammy bar there. At the beginning, it almost sounded like a harmonica. Yeah, ripped it up. But I think it's almost the same tone as the other songs, even though it's a very different style song.
Now the bass is popping out.
I feel like there's enough space in this song where you can really hear the bass.
Yeah.
But I'm probably atypical, but I always want a little more bass.
No. There's no such thing as not enough bass.
Oh, he did the little "I love you" at the end. I think he does that on the "This Time Around,"
Mm-hmm.
at the concert. He's like, "Oh, I love you." All right. The only one. John, what do you think about this one?
This might be the only 3.5 that I give. The only one.
I hope not.
Me too. But I did like it. At first, I was kind of like, when it started off, I'm like, oh, is this going to be some kind of vanilla, average, whatever, just kind of pop song sounding type of thing. But then when it kind of revved up, when it got into the bridge and the chorus, then it grabbed me. And like I said, I think, or like you said rather, if he was doing output like this like 5-10 years earlier, then I feel like maybe he would have gotten more traction or even, some hits, because the chorus, that you're the only one. It's
Yep.
very, very catchy.
Very catchy.
Yeah, just very like you to bop your head along to it and stuff. So I liked it. Like I said, it took maybe a minute for me to get going, but this was definitely a good one. I like not all the pop stuff, but when he nails it, like this was a very, like, I feel like you could have found this on the Hughes Thrall album
Easily. Yep.
as well. So yeah, 5-10 years earlier, and this would have fit in great.
Yeah, I give it a 3.5 as well. I think it's a really good song. Shows his songwriting. Yeah, and production wise, I think it worked really well too. I think the production maybe that is on this album was better suited to this kind of style of song, but from what we've heard so far. But yeah, really, really good track. I like that one. All right. Next track up is a song called Why Don't You Stay? This one was written by Hughes and Richard Baker, who was the former keyboardist in Santana's band.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Richard Marx.
That would be great.
There's an old saying that just won't leave my mind. And you know I've been praying, girl, you know that you're one of a kind. And I know that you're lonely, baby, and I know you've been sad. And I've been dying to see you. There's a picture of you that's deep inside of my soul.
Whoa, he did like a different voice there. I almost thought it was somebody else.
I wouldn't
Yeah, the picture of you.
want to tell, 'cause I get a little
He was doing a good Coverdale impression the other night on Sail Away.
right train.
Yeah.
Like he was. I was like, wow. And then he did his Hughes impression for his parts.
His Hughes impression.
I can't stop you from leaving.
So this Richard Baker also played with Lynch Mob, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and Bruce Dickinson.
Let's make a brand new start. And let's have a little heart to heart. So let's make a toast to the times that we've had. 'Cause I love you the most, through the good and through
This is like all right, we're going to slow it down now for all the
Yeah.
couples on the dance floor. You just swaying back and forth.
Some awkward shimmying, and waist holding. It's almost got like a kind of like a gospel feel to it, this song.
Good call.
And let's make a brand new start. 'Cause the only thing that I want is for you to be
I feel like this is a really good song that just like is missing something with like the production. Like that end part where like the organ, like I feel like the organ could have swelled more. I feel like there's so much drama in this song, and it's kind of like the more of the same with the guitar tone, and then like Glenn's vocals. It's like with that delay, is that really what you want in this kind of song? Like his vocals are incredible, but like you have this like slap back delay, and like
let's
Also feel like some of these songs may have been better executed in the hands of another artist. You know what I mean? Like, if this wasn't Glenn Hughes doing this and this was a more popular artist, would this song have gotten more attention? Because sometimes I can suffer from that is that Hughes is a niche artist.
Yeah.
I mean, if this was like, I don't know, Elton John singing this, would this have been a huge hit? Because it's not a bad song. It's just
I like Boys to Men. Honestly, I'm not even joking. You know, with like some 4-part harmonies, I could see them tearing this apart.
yeah, I get you. I get where you're coming from because you kind of made reference to that gospel type thing, which lends itself to R&B groups. So I could see that. It's yeah, I don't know if it's exactly what I'm hearing now is like everything that I want from a Glenn Hughes album. I mean, I like the fact that he has explored different styles over the years, so it's definitely kept things interesting, but
Yeah, I think it's just one that I could have seen like it's a great song, good arrangement, but it was almost just like I said, I just feel like I was expecting it to go somewhere that it didn't go. But anyway, John, what do you give this one?
I'm gonna have to give it a 2.5.
All right.
I like it. It's hard for me to judge here. I guess I'm just gonna have to judge based on the album. I think the song was good, but Hughes doing the song was maybe, like I've been saying before, not really one of what I hear from him. But it's a good song, and I mean he does it well, and like I get where he's going, but I also feel like by this time we're a few years into the 90s, and a lot of this sounds very kind of 80s ish.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you got to think of 94. I mean, we're well into years into the grunge era and all that. So it's, and like, you know, there are bands that were trying to emulate that sort of thing for popularity. Some of them might be bands that some of us liked a lot that went down the grunge route or tried to.
yeah, I mean, Hughes could have easily done that. Hughes could have done the Jarl pretty well. He was a
I think his voice is too high for that though. But I think I'm glad he didn't do that.
Oh yeah, me
First of all,
too.
with either his look, you know, because he's got the cowboy hat and the fringe jacket. I mean, it looks like more like a country artist than even a rock artist. But you know, everyone else was, you know, if he was wearing like plaid flannel shirt tied around his waist and all that and trying to do a grunge album. But
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think it's like through all those years of like exploration, it's kind of like um I mean, at their core, even the bands that did that kind of grungy or more, let's just say stripped down sound from that
yeah,
era, it's like the thing that I like about bands now, like we're seeing now is like Hughes, even Enough's Enough, right? They know what their brand is, right?
Mhm.
Like you see Chip walking around with the big, he just leans into it, the big round glasses and the hat and everything. This the whole 60s vibe.
By the
And
way, I didn't
Hughes,
realize how tall he was. Holy
yeah,
crap.
he's a big dude.
I never seen him
Um,
in person. Like, wow, he's got to be like 6'2", 6'3".
yeah.
He's huge.
Or even just like embracing the style, or just like this is my shtick, like Hughes with the when he has the background of the old picture of him with like kind of
Yeah, yep.
the tie-dye thing, and him wearing the bell bottoms and the Converse and the peace and love type of thing, like him almost going for the 60s thing. It's like I think it's in this era and around here, he was just kind of scrounging around almost, whereas is like, you know, and like now some of these bands from that era are just like, okay, we know what our look and our brand and everything is
Yeah.
supposed to be, and they just kind of stick with that. And you know,
But
maybe
I
if
think these first few albums back, he was trying to find that and trying to find his way. And this is, this is
right,
only the second album really back, since it's only his third solo album, and he had what, between 77 and what was it, 92, that he didn't have any solo albums. So
right,
he did, the one-off albums here and there, and he did a lot of guest spots, but
yeah.
coming back from that and still battling with his addictions and everything, just trying to find everything. And I took a few. I'm not sure exactly where the album is, where it kind of started to click. It might be like, Addiction or one of those albums, but where it started to click a little bit more. But
Well, I think that's maybe why I never clung on to him, is because whenever a new Hughes album was released, I was kind of like, I really don't know what I'm supposed to expect here. Am I getting pop Hughes or gospel Hughes, or is he going to be hard rockin', or what's he going to do?
yeah,
And so that just kind of, I think, deterred me a little bit, or made me not as interested.
yeah, that makes sense. I'll give it a 2.5 as well. I really do like the song. And it would be interesting to hear. I would love to hear a cover of it. I'd love to hear him do it with like a slightly different, not arrangement, but production on it. Because I think it had there's a lot of dramatic moments and emotional moments in the song that I think could have popped a little bit better. But okay, next track up is called "Walking on the Water." Ooh,
Very buzzy sounding.
sounds like a Hendrix. Not where you'd expect that to go after the intro.
Nope.
I love this groove so far.
Somewhere a man is waiting for his call.
Oh, it's kind of throwing you off with the beat a little bit.
Somewhere a baby is waiting to be born.
This reminds me of like a Lenny Kravitz song.
Yeah, you're very intuitive in picking out some of those little things in this. Yeah, it does.
I could see Kravitz doing something like this around this time too. Like it sounds like from something like the Circus album.
I don't know if it's a ridiculous question or not, but has he and Lenny Kravitz ever collaborated on anything? Because I feel like now that you mention that would be a natural.
I don't think they have, but yeah, I would obviously be down for
Because
that.
I mean, I know we had like, the Hughes Turner project, but I mean the Hughes Kravitz project would be
Is that too much though? Like it's
that'd be
like
too much soul for us to handle.
Too much soul and charisma in one in one group. But yeah, hearing like Glenn's bass backing up Kravitz's like funky guitar and then like their voices together would be really cool.
Yeah, that would be very cool. Hey, if anybody's listening that wants to put that together,
Yeah, come on, put it together. Kravitz could wear they could both be wearing those giant Lenny Kravitz scarves. Have you seen him with that scarf?
yeah.
It's the most incredible picture that's ever happened.
Oh yeah. The fact that it's
scarf.
real just still blows my mind.
He's wearing a scarf that looks like he took like a king-size duvet and just wrapped it around his neck.
He probably did.
Could have. I like those those gang vocals, like with a crazy reverb on them in the background, but it kind of works. And this one was written by Hughes and Gowdy as well, just like the opening track.
Okay.
Panning on the vocals there. You get kind of that like really distant funky guitar in the background. That's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you're getting it through the Zoom call, but there's a lot of crazy panning going on left to right in this.
No, whenever you get panning or stuff in different channels, it doesn't translate for me in this program.
I'm gonna try to set it up on the new computer so it does.
Somewhere a stranger comes a-walking from the past. Somewhere a movie is waiting to be cast, but it won't be easy, so you better close the door. I hear you talking, now what are you asking for? It won't be
I feel like that background vocal shouldn't work, but it does. Like I really
That's
like
all
it.
different for music.
And for a song of this nature. But it's like, if you do the math on it, it shouldn't work out, but it does. Walking on the water. All right, John, what do you think about that one?
We're definitely definitely a very Jesus-y type of title.
One of the most famous walking on water guys that there's been.
Yeah, I can't think of too many others.
He doesn't have a lot of competition. Kind of has the market cornered on walking on the water.
I'm gonna have to give this one a 2.5.
Really?
Yeah, I just I wasn't into it. I feel like I'm getting too much mid to slower tempo Glenn Hughes here. It's not really in my wheelhouse. Like, I acknowledge that these are good songs and he's putting in good performances, and that he knows how to get a hook going, and I like the little time change that he threw in was kind of weird. And as soon as you said Lenny Kravitz, I was like, okay, I could see that. But the thing is that we're throwing other artists out there about, like, wow, wouldn't this song be basically I'm hearing, wouldn't this song be much better if this person was doing it instead of Glenn Hughes? Not that it sucks, like he's doing it bad. It's very not interesting to me.
Okay.
So,
And this is my favorite one so far. I give it a 4. I liked it.
I mean, I could see that just because of the groove, and
Yeah.
it's got a lot of stuff in it that I know you like. I wasn't about the background vocals. When I heard that, I'm like,
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. I would kind of expect to have that reaction, but because it sounded like the background vocals from like a Twisted Sister song or something, like, it would be like those the roar, 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 with all
Yeah.
with the reverb on it. But I was like, somehow it works in this like weird sort of slinky song. Kravitz always has one song on every album that's kind of like this, where he's like, talking about, where he's got that song Free. He's got what's the one where he's he's got some song that's like, really angsty.
Yeah.
That's like in this kind of style. I can't think of any of the other ones at the moment, and this just kind of reminded me of that. And those usually aren't my favorite songs on the Kravitz albums, but I like the way that he did it here. So, but that's just me. Okay, next track up is called "The Liar." Wonder who this is about. Mentioned. This is co-written by either Jean Beauvoir or Jean Beauvoir.
Oh, Jean Beauvoir, yeah. He was he was a member of the Plasmatics, and he also wrote and recorded a few songs with Kiss back in the 80s.
Such as Thrills in the Night.
And coincidentally, I met him a couple of times at Kiss Expos, and he's a hell of a nice guy.
Oh, nice.
I actually have a group photo where I'm crouching down and he's crouched down next to me with his arm around me.
Oh, nice. You have to dig that up. I'm glad he pronounces it Jean Beauvoir.
Yeah, for a while I didn't know who that dude was. Yeah, it's like, who's Gene Bouvier? Is he just like a relative of Marge Simpson? I mean, you can't hear that without thinking of the Led Zeppelin. Ah!
Oh yeah, yeah. Now I
Like,
can't.
it's just you can't. I mean, it's not the same. He's putting his own spin on whatever that is, but
I bet Hughes could really blast out immigrant songs with no problems. Better than Plant could these days. He did that intro to Highway Star again the other night. Holy crap.
oh yeah, geez.
Ooh, it's like a really easy sound on the guitar.
Ha! I like your impression. No.
I think it's just got that production of the era where it just doesn't. It's not like those drums. Like I feel like that should have been punchier, you know. That there's so much energy in the performances that just doesn't feel like it's translating. Ooh, that was a nice little bass one.
All right, we're getting some cool bass here.
Ooh. A little guitar, a little guitar back and forth here between the channels. There's John. Oh, so this was more recent than I thought.
Yeah, 2019.
Oh, okay.
So there's me and him like down on the bottom there.
I love it. Oh, listen to that. That's something.
I feel like he was just trying a couple of new things on this album, you know? Like stuff you don't typically hear from him.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. I'm gonna have to find a way to put this picture of you, and I'm gonna just zoom in on you and Jean Beauvoir.
Like I said, is like hell of a nice guy. Like you know, as evidenced by that picture, he's just wandering around the hotel, like meeting people, and that was after like a midnight show, in one of the ballrooms by a band, like a band that they were. I don't know if they were bringing them on the Kiss cruise or if they were just at the cruise fest, because that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
At that place. But I mean, even the expo, like when they were having, you know, they had some vendors and stuff upstairs, the bar. He's just walking around, and I mean,
Yeah,
you're
been
in
the coolest looking guy there too. Like,
oh yeah, friggin' like over 6 foot tall black guy with a mohawk, like
a big blonde mohawk.
yeah, big. You're not gonna miss that anywhere.
Nope.
But yeah, it's very cool to even if people aren't like quote unquote famous, there are these people that you grew up with or you grew up like hearing about or whatever, and they're just kind of sauntering around and just talking to people. You could just go up and just chat with them. So it was like a very, very cool experience. And if you ever
Awesome.
interviews with him too, he's just as nice of a guy, just always laughing and cracking up and telling stories. And so, but that being said, since he was would you say he was a co-writer on this song, right?
Yep.
So, man, I have to give it another 2.5.
Really?
Just
Okay.
yeah, just middle of the road. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate some of the different stuff that he was doing, especially in the last two songs with the background vocals, Hughes. Um, and yeah, even the guitar solo, kind of cool. Um, but overall, just didn't grab me the way that um that I wanted.
All right. I give it a 3.5. I liked it.
3.5.
3.5. I don't know. I liked it. Kind of weird, sort of almost discordant. Just very like, you know, not what you'd really expect, but it was kind of cool. I liked it. All right. So now I think we get the last song we'll do this week. For our next part 2 of this album. To spare you all a 3.5-hour episode after we get into the, and of course we've talked about it a million times. This is the CD age. This has 14 tracks on it on the Japanese version, so it's a lot of tracks. But here we go with the final track for this week, track number 7 on the album, Into the Void. It's not a cover of the Black Sabbath song, I don't believe. Oh.
Nope.
Swear to God, he's using the same keyboard I had. Taking me back. Oh wow, kind of like synth.
In this ever-changing world, we live in dangerous times.
Uh-oh.
When you're standing on the ledge, there's no time to think it over. Get into the void. Is this the last time that you will question my faith? This is the season of the crimson sky.
It sounds like a sequenced synth thing going on in the background. The narration made it sound like it was like some sort of like sci-fi sort of song.
The Hughes sci-fi theme.
Race. Going into very different territory. Almost like a musical theater kind of thing, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
That was the John Yav. I agree with you, and I don't like it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
what that synth is doing in the background.
Well, yeah, no, it definitely does have like a foreboding type of thing that Hughes doesn't usually do.
It just makes me think like I could just see like this on Broadway and like Hughes is dressed up like a cyborg or something. It's like the sci-fi Broadway show.
He was dressed up as a cyborg.
He looks like kind of like Eddie on the cover of like the first Iron Maiden album, or like that robot guy from Dehumanizer, just like one of those kind of like post-apocalyptic futures.
Yeah, this is like post-apocalyptic Glenn Hughes.
Maybe it was Glenn that was in the spacesuit on the cover of Whoosh. Maybe it wasn't Brad Evans. I don't know.
Is this the last time that you will question my faith?
I wonder if there's got to be some. I tried to find reviews of this album, but did not have a lot of luck.
No,
No.
I do like that synth thing that's happening in the background.
I do. I like
I
that
mean,
a lot.
I mean, it does go with what this song is.
I can't recall that moment in time.
I have to check the Darker Than Blue. I'll look for that for next week for a review. I can only imagine what Simon Robinson thought of this. Oh, boy. Yeah, it's almost like that like 50 sci-fi, like it's not done on a theremin, but it sounds like it should be. What a great place to break it for part 2 here. Unexpected place.
Yeah, very.
But that one, I know I've had this album on in the background before, but like whenever I have music on and I'm not in this format or doing other things, it's not that I tune it out, but I just don't hear it in the same way. So, this one does not sound familiar to me. But Into the Void, John, what do you think about this one?
You know, I'll give it a 3.5.
All right.
Points for originality for Hughes. I'll say that. And I mean, it did have this dark undertone to it, but it worked. I can already predict my overall kind of thought for the album, which we could get to next week. Is just like feels very disjointed in terms of like a theme.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, this song was, I guess I like how he's taken some chances now, and some stuff is working, some stuff isn't. You know, very, very keyboard heavy on this one, but I mean, he sounds good throughout the whole album, and everything that he's doing and kind of goes with it. I know there's some things where we're just like, oh no, his voice is not suited to this. Like, he's a great vocalist, but it's not suited to this. But this one, oddly enough, it was pretty good. But I mean, I think that goes along with his being able to sing like hard rock and metal stuff really well.
Yeah.
Which kind of that approaches this. Like, if you threw in some like really heavy guitars, or if somebody did a heavier version of this could easily be like a epic metal song.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll give this one a 2.5. Did not resonate with me quite the same way.
Boy, this is the first time in a while that our ratings are just like all over the place from each other. They're not as close as they usually. Like, it's been a while since we felt so differently about an album.
Yeah, and I think overall we'll probably feel the same way about the album. I think just the individual songs are kind of But yeah, it's interesting because next week's series of songs is going to be much different in that we are going to have a couple of songs that are basically songs that, well, he does 2 Deep Purple songs, redoes them. He does one of his, probably, from my opinion, one of his more classic solo songs. 2 Hughes Thrall songs that were left on the cutting room floor that he redoes. And then a Trapeze song that he redoes. So next week is like Deep Purple, Hughes Thrall, Trapeze, and a couple of Hughes originals.
Yeah, so it almost
So it's
makes
gonna,
this album like what's
yeah,
even
so it's going to be
happening.
like very, very, very different than what we heard just now. So I could see our ratings being a little different and all that. So yeah, it's but it does kind of combine with it being a little disjointed. And I think this, as we've talked about ad nauseum, this is the
Yeah.
era of you got to fill a CD. So you get longer songs and more longer songs. And that's why you end up with on the final Japanese version of, well, actually, I think the Japanese version might have had 13 tracks, and then there was a US one that had 14. But at any rate,
Yeah.
the 2 Deep Purple tracks are almost bonus tracks. But I figured, why not just do them all together since we're splitting this up into 2? So yeah, I think it's gonna be a very different episode next time. But yeah, overall, I think from a historical standpoint, it's very interesting seeing him coming out of, doing his second album with a totally different lineup, very different style than the last one, a little bit more of a core group of musicians. And I'm not as familiar with Europe as, well, I'm not familiar with Europe at all, I should say.
Yeah.
The continent I know fairly well, the group not at all. So
Well, I
interesting to see how it
recently
ties in with that.
learned a little bit about him. There's another podcast I listened to which recently reviewed their Final Countdown album, which was
Oh,
not their first album. So it was actually
their
that
second or
album was,
third, or
yeah, it was very different. Like in the beginning, they actually and I haven't listened to too much of the stuff, but I guess prior to that, they were doing music that and I want to check it out because it was very much in the vein of their influences: Deep Purple, Whitesnake, Rainbow. Like that
Yep.
was their kind of shtick. Like they were in that mold. So I was like, oh, maybe early Europe would be a thing. But they were very much kind of not manufactured, but um, they were kind of getting primed for more to try and be more popular by that third album. So it was kind of more atypical overall for their sound and everything. But I guess it makes sense how Hughes might have hooked up with the bass player because I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say that he was probably one of their influences if their music was very Deep Purple, Whitesnake-ish
sure.
in the beginning. So but yeah, that's the extent to I know about him.
Much more than I know. But maybe between these 2 episodes, I'll listen to a little Europe and I'll bone up on Europe. That sounds dirty. Okay, so before we wrap it up for this week, we have to do something very special, and that is, of course, you guessed it, it's to thank our final group of patrons, our foundation level patrons. Coming in at the $3.50 Deep Purple New York tier, we have Lord Longford. At the £3 aromatic feed tier, Simon Ford and Richard Brees. At the $3.33 halfway to evil tier, Stephen Sharp and Duncan Leask. At the $3 Nobody's Perfect tier, we have Peter Gardot, Ian DeRosier, Mark Roback, Stuart McCord. Then we have
Flight of the Red Bat Balloon. Right!
Ivan Fjeldbu,
It's a great life in the Norwegian.
Runar Simonsen,
It's a great life in the Norwegian. It's a
JJ Stenard, Ruinous Inadequacies, John Maselli,
Hey, there's singing going on here about America. Oh, Purple Mountain Majesties.
Michael Boyette, Corey Morissette, Ashley, Still I Hear Burn. At the $1.71 I Want My Own tier, we have none other than
Rich, Yangui, Shaylor.
at the 10 kroner tier, Karsten Lau. And finally, at the $1 made up name tier, we have oh no, I forgot. We have the Into the Void, Leaky Mausoleum, Stephen Somerville, the Concerto 1999 fanatic, Hank the Tank, Private Eyes, Ashen Lionel,
Blackmore tights.
Steve Down to Earth Kohler, Zwapper the Electric Alchemist, Anders Engstrom, ICDC, Derpel Purple, and Purple Swede.
Swede?
Thank you, all of you, for your generous support of the Deep Purple podcast. And if this is your first episode, welcome. You know, sometimes I just go through the jingles in a very I don't know, procedural way, and sometimes it just kind of the ridiculousness of it all just strikes me all at once. Okay, well, there you go, folks. That is the first half of Glenn Hughes' 1994 album. From now on, we'll be back at you next week with the second half and a recap of John's time at the Deep Purple show, the Glenn Hughes show.
Oh, the Glenn Hughes show. Yeah.
So yeah, we'll have a blast at the show, my friend.
All right.
Tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can't believe in just a few hours, and I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
All right.
Peace out.
Thank you for listening to the Deep Purple podcast. If you like what you hear and would like more episodes in the future, please donate on Patreon to support the show. You can also leave us a review in Apple Podcasts to help new people discover the show. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for show updates. See deeppurplepodcast.com for more details. Thank you for listening.